Okay, so for this video, for my fractional freebie stitch of a Valentine's heart, the first thing I should probably do is tell you what a fractional stitch is. So I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can see. Oh, that's much better. Okay, so for cross stitch, you have an X, which is called a hole stitch. Okay. Then the fractional stitches, you have a 1/4, 1/2, and a 3/4. And all that means is if you are doing, it doesn't matter if you're doing linen or Aida. Okay, so in linen, if you look at the weave of linen close up, you have threads that go this way, which is is that the weft? And then you have threads that go this way. And most people, when they do cross stitch on linen, they count over 2 threads instead of 1. So they consider this part of linen over 2 threads the holes, and they make a hole stitch. Aida, people get very confused about Aida, and they think Aida is thicker threads, or it's like a beginner fabric, or it's not suitable for fancy stitches or fractional stitches. And that is, the opposite is true, that it was actually designed turn of the century by the German company Zweigart, by Mr. Zweigart and a partner, and then Mr. Zweigart passed away relatively quickly, and his wife took over, and they designed a fabric that didn't have a lot of the issues that linen has. And I don't want to go into a long spiel of what those issues were, but you can very well do this in Aida. But if you zoom in, if you have a piece of Aida, look at it, or if you don't, let me show you. Aida actually are four threads close together. So if you look at Aida, that's 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what Aida looks like. So the holes you see in Aida, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's actually what Aida is. So your holes in Aida are here, and you can do a cross stitch. Now, what's wild about Aida, it's not just that it's 4 threads this way and 4 threads this way, and I will go into this more in another video. These threads, the inner threads, are actually intertwined with each other. It's like a double weave. So you can do this linen or Aida, it doesn't matter. But basically what you're talking about is wherever your box is, whether it's a box here with over 2 threads, or it's a box here over the 4 threads each way with Aida. What you're talking about is a box that we see where this is taken up with thread, this is taken up with thread, and then you have these 4 holes. Why you can make a hole stitch. What a quarter, half, and 3/4 mean is you are utilizing these holes just like in math when you were talking about, a quarter, half, 3/4 in fractions in math. So a half is diagonal. So you're going over it like that. A quarter is utilizing only 1 hole, but then coming up through the center. So in linen, you're coming up through between these two threads. That's your center hole. In Aida, you're piercing, you're dividing between the 2 threads in the center of Aida. So you're coming up here, and then, so here's your 2 holes again. So in a quarter, you're coming up the center somehow, and then you're going, and you're only utilizing 1 leg, 1 hole. A half utilizes 2 holes. A quarter utilizes 1 hole. 3/4, you have your 4 holes. In 3/4, you're going to do, it's a combination of 1/2 and 1/4. So you come up in the center, whether that's coming up between the 2 holes in linen or dividing those 4 strands in Aida. You come up the center, you do a 1/4 some direction, whichever direction you need, and then you do a 1/2. But then sometimes what's confusing when you talk about 3/4, in essence what you're doing is you're filling in diagonally half that square space with one color. What that does is allows you, so if I was doing like a diagonal stitching here, it allows you to make a diagonal line. And that's why it is desirable to know how to do it. So, so that's 3/4. The other thing 3/4 is used for, here's our 4 holes. I've made a 3/4 this direction with like some kind of color. Then this direction I can make a different color. And I can divide that square into 2 different colors. Fractionals also allow curves by a combination of straight, diagonal, straight, diagonal, straight, diagonal. You can get curves that are tighter. So if we look at our pattern, I've curved because I've gone these are, and we'll zoom in a little bit. Unfocus. So these are what 3/4 stitches look like on a pattern. So to make this curve, I've gone 1, 2, 3, 3/4, a hole, 2 3/4, a hole, 1 3/4, a hole, which is starting to give me a curve around. And then here is a long line of just 3/4 on the diagonal to give me a diagonal line. So that's the merit to fractional stitches. It is not true that you can't do them on Aida. You can definitely do them on Aida. You can do them on linen. The thing about linen that I think is an issue for people in this, anything like this, is that the nature of this weave, because it's interwoven both directions, you can pull pretty hard on you have to pull to get like an eyelet stitch, and we'll talk about that when we're doing the eyelet stitch. The threads don't move around so much. Linen, there's really nothing keeping these threads from moving around. And if you're trying to have a kind of a neat look, that's when you're having to do things in a hoop. And also, if you don't do fractional stitches, that's another reason why you have higher counts of fabric, either Aida or linen, which means a smaller squares, and you're not having as much pixelated look. So like, you know, pixelated means, I'm gonna cough here in a second. Pixelated means it's the same terminology if we're talking about printing or like things on a computer screen. You know, printing pictures on a computer screen or in print are made up with either dots or pixels. And the thing about X's and cross stitch is we're seeing the tiny little fuzz or edge using a full stitch. The bigger this is, so if I'm on like 14 count, I'm going to see that edge. Where if I'm on 20 count, or, you know, the linen sizes that are bigger, this is smaller and smaller and smaller, and it makes my edge not look so fuzzy. This makes an edge look fuzzy, you know. The reason I like 3/4 stitch is it gives me a very, very sharp edge. Where did my, so I've already done this half of this heart. So see how sharp my edge is? Where if I did that with a full cross stitch, it would be a fuzzy. It would look fuzzy. And then of course, okay, we're going to try this. It's still a work in progress, so bear with me. But just to show you quick what this looks like on Ada, I'm just going to do the different fractionals. So to do the whole, there's a whole stitch, and I should get bigger hold fabric, but I don't have it. So that's a whole stitch. To do a half a stitch, I'm going diagonally down across that square, and that's a half. Now to do the 3/4, let me see if I can make you closer and stay in frame. I am going to come up. I am piercing in between my 4 strands that are interwoven in Ada, or I come up between the 2 threads in linen, and I'm going back down again. That is a 1/4 stitch. And to be honest, I have yet to only use a 1/4 stitch. A half stitch is to come up in the center, go down, and then diagonally across that, the opposite direction, and I kind of use my needle to push it to the side it belongs, kind of pull a little. So there you have, okay, so there is a 1/4, which is using all 4 holes, a half, which is going across, a 1/4, which is coming up that center hole and then going down, so it's usually only using 1 leg, and then a 3/4, which is in essence filling up a half diagonally of that square. And the reason, again, what I said in the drawings is why I like 3/4, is by doing the 3/4 on a diagonal, instead of a hole. I'm going to get a crisp diagonal line. Now I will say, and I'll talk about this more when we're actually doing the pattern, if I was going to fill this side of a 3/4 in with a different color, I don't use a full 3/4. I use a half. So I fill in a square by utilizing a 3/4 and then a half. So there are the stitches with my wobbly camera. Oh, I had my knee on it. That was half the problem. And to show you, now I'm going to actually do my pattern and show you while I stitch a 3/4. I mean a fraction, when I use fractional stitches.